So I would like to lift the energy in the room. How about that? And I would like to start off by saying that although that my topic is on financial crime, I want to enthrall you to show how it does mix with AI, and in a sense that AI is squarely in use in relation to investigations at the moment, in the way that we do compliance internationally, but it will never be sufficient to really overtake the investigation itself. It will be always be an aid, and I suppose what I would like to do this afternoon is really give you an idea of what's occurring in financial crime in Asia. And it's probably stuff that you really do not know, and you probably don't want to know, but it's going to help you in your own jobs when you reflect on some of the issues that I'm about to explain to you, and the shifting sands, if you like, in relation to financial crime. So I just want to get the slides right, okay? Yep, so okay, so the whole aspect in relation to what's occurring at the moment. So you've heard about the casino inquiries, the Royal Commission, and issues such as that. You've heard about 1MDB, Berhad, corruption in Malaysia, where indeed their own Malaysian Prime Minister was arrested for corruption. And what I want to indicate to you this afternoon is that AI will remain a very important tool, but really the issues are in our society are integrity. That is the main issue in our society at the moment, and we are crying out for integrity in all areas, both from government to school systems to the financial sector. And in the last 5 years, what's occurred is that because there has been a lack of integrity and the way things have been done, there has been a shift from regulators, both ASIC and the ACCC, and other state-based regulators, from a supervision approach to a more enforcement-orientated approach. And I would say to you that the important aspect of that, or the piece de la resistance, which caused this, was really the Royal Commission in Australia. Much like the casino inquiries and the Royal Commission, are things that we knew that was happening, but we really failed to do anything about it, and they were on the radar for at least a decade. So there has been increased enforcement in anti-money laundering, and we've heard some of the speakers this afternoon actually touch on that, and cyber security. We've recently seen that Optus in the last few days was exposed to a hack which affected 10 million Australians with their driver's license and their passports. I don't know the ins and outs, and we still don't know what's occurred, but what I'm saying to you is that we are moving in a very different world from what we had even like a decade ago. So I want to say something to you that is my own thought process, is that we cannot fight 21st century crime with 19th century tools. So this conference is very apt, because it's not only rethinking the way we are trying to look at the landscape in health, finance, education, government, it's going to transcend everything in which we know. And in fact, the last speaker made me think when he was actually saying that we process more today in one day than we did in the 15th century, which sometimes makes me think now, like, no wonder why I'm so exhausted. Well, probably you are at the end of the day, because you're doing 3 lifetimes in a day. So these are very important things, but we will not be able to deal with true 21st century crime through AI alone. AI will be a tool, a very important tool, I can assure you of that. But the issues of the day are more of how do we train people to, or have the skills to embark on proper investigations to prevent financial crime. Because what we're seeing at the moment, or what I can say to you, is like a wave of financial crime in all areas, and even in the last few days, you've heard that the government, the Attorney General, has indicated that they're now going to announce a federal ICAC, which has been called for. So that's another route, if you like, in relation to corruption and financial crime, and they will need tools of investigation to look at those issues, because an investigation is not a simple approach where you have facts and you've got a complaint. What you need is the compass to look at all the individuals involved, the contracts, the information, and not all that information is on a phone or a computer these days, because people have wised up, to search warrants and what can be extracted, if you like, from data. So we're in a new frontier, if you like, where not only it's the way that we have to investigate financial crime, but also financial crime is cross-jurisdictional. It's no longer, when I started out years ago, every investigation was in Australia. Now I can assure you very few investigations would be only in Australia, because it would be relating to accounts held in New York, in the Caymans, trusts created in the Isle of Man, so and so. So it's no longer a simple scenario where we're able to get to the truth. And this is really what the challenge is, and I suppose the criticisms are of the regulator at the moment, or the regulators, is that they just simply do not have the skills or the information to deal with the sophistication or growing sophistication of crime at the moment, okay? Now, I want to pause here for a second. Energy. I want to ask you, were you really surprised? You can put your hands up. Were you really surprised about the casino inquiries? Did that surprise anyone? Did you know that the casinos in Australia were laundering billions of dollars, like literally, nearly close to like $1 trillion over a period of a decade, under all the regulators in Australia's noses? Is anyone surprised by that? No? So we sort of knew that you got a casino, right? And then the major shareholders, they fix who's on the board. So there's no real skills on the board. So no one's got the initiative to start asking questions. And then you've got like a senior management who, well, they're really there for the money. And then underneath that, you've got a total structure that we paid for with your state taxes and our federal taxes that were clearly like asleep at the wheel. And we've ended up with a situation where, quote unquote, Australia has been infiltrated to a large extent with international criminal activity that we didn't have a decade ago. So you explain that one to me, because we are spending millions upon millions of dollars supporting our state organisations, yet not one conviction in relation to money laundering. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. There are convictions, but lower down the level for drug deals. Okay? I mean a conviction in the sense of senior management knowingly involved in money laundering, lying to banks, changing all those sorts of issues. So I just bring that to your attention to indicate to you that these are real issues for society. Now let me tell you the permutations of those issues. You may think, oh, that doesn't affect me because I'm in the health industry or I'm in the IT industry. How it affects you is this. If you look at other countries in the world where there is clear organised crime and clear corruption, it means that they can influence the politics, the judges, the outcomes, and a major shift in society. Okay? So when we're talking about money laundering and the infiltration of money laundering, what they're really talking about in 20 years is a new total power base in the country where that is occurring. And you're looking at Russia, you're looking at Italy, Sardinia, many other jurisdictions in the world where there is no ultimate rule of law, or where there is a way to get outcomes that the state actually wants. There's no real independence. And so these are the things that you've got to really watch out for in terms of, it may start with a trickle, but these things can grow into a monster and actually shift the whole outlook of society. So that's one thing I would say to you. That's something that we all need to understand and learn, or pay more attention to, and maybe an ICAC isn't a bad thing. I just want to jump from the climate change, which I'll come back to in a minute, but the other approach, and if you note, remember, if you can turn your mind back, about cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies 3 years ago. Remember your friends were telling you about cryptocurrencies and someone knew more than you and all that sort of stuff. Well, I always thought it was bad hat from the start because it was never based on a real asset, okay? And anyone who's involved in financial investigations, and you dig deep and you look at it and you say, oh, I don't even understand this. There's actually no control. It's pure entrepreneurship. I'm not talking about blockchain, to a degree stable coins, but I'm talking about the real cryptocurrencies where there's about 200,000 of them in the world now, okay? And many failed companies. And this is another aspect of the technological knowledge where we run along without really understanding what we are investing in, who owns the assets, and where the money is. Now let me take you back. So when initially cryptos were on the rise, both in Australia and the US, UK, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, everybody was on a media spin. So no one was looking at the facts. And then there was very important leaders who were entrepreneurs who gave their tick to it. So everyone thought, again, it's a good thing. But now we're looking at a total disaster for many thousands of investors internationally who have invested in major cryptocurrencies like the Three Arrows, Luna, a few others, where because there is no regulation, and they were largely unregulated, but with warnings, when those companies have gone under, it's very hard now to trace those funds, or who owned or where those funds went, or also to hold those CEOs and senior management responsible for the receivership or the liquidation. For example, where's the data? We heard a lot about data today, but what happens if the data is in another jurisdiction? Where's your enforcement powers to get that data? I'm an investor in Australia. I invested in Malaysia in cryptocurrencies. The firm's here. So how can an investor in Australia be protected in those circumstances. So all these new technologies, they are good. No one's saying that, but no one's actually thought through the real legal ramifications of not only getting your money back, but the protections of investors. So technology raises a lot of interesting issues in the global economy per se. Things that things that there is no acute answer to at the moment, unless, for example, there's a world law in relation to liquidations. And then you've got to think about the cost of that. 2 liquidators in 2 different countries, very expensive. Okay. The other major aspect that you all know about is climate change and climate disclosures. So this is moving quite fast in the sense that a lot of our investors are demanding now that large corporations have appropriate ESG, climate change and governance laws in place to know how their investments are actually working, what degree of information or what degree of investments are going to green energy. Again, another area for fraud. I just want to make sure, does this work? Oh no, sorry, go backward. Excuse me. Okay, so what's happened is that as a result of all these issues which I've spoken about, there is a higher scrutiny on banks and insurers. And in fact, for the first time in Australia, an insurer has been charged criminally. If you want to read my paper, you'll see that I go into that. And so what we're looking at is a different approach, again, to enforcement and no longer just civil penalty proceedings. We're now moving where regulators have lost their patience and are saying we need to take criminal actions against some of these organisations who are not acting in the interests of consumers. We're also seeing a higher protection of vulnerable consumers, and I suppose that this is an area which has been left behind for a long time and was only really flagged during the Royal Commission when there was a lot more emphasis that was on age, the abilities of individuals in relation to understanding what contracts are, what they were signing and how much they had to pay. There was also a lot of concern that consumers were misled in relation to the information that they received from financial institutions. And this led to them being required to have credit cards, or they paid extra for their insurance where they weren't disclosed the real information that they should have been and the cost of those additional financial products that they were sold. Okay, I've spoken to you about data protection failures, just on the point of Optus, but the aspect that we have to understand is the degree that cybersecurity can actually help us. Because although the concern that I have is that organisations, they are taking a large amount of the data, okay? So you've got your licenses, you've got your passports, you've got your other personal information, and we presume that this data is being effectively protected, and that this organisation is a smart organisation and has got top-tier cyber security. The trouble with our dynamic society at the moment is that we cannot keep abreast of all the developments in information technology to be able to infiltrate organisations. We cannot keep abreast of it. So organisations have to update their security. And so this was probably one of the issues for Optus. Was its security A1 in terms of all the circumstances? We'll find out with an inquiry. Okay. Okay, so I think the most important thing that I want to leave behind in this talk, because I've only got a few minutes left, is to say to you that unless we start thinking completely differently about financial crime, we will be the losers. Society will be the losers. We cannot now fight the type of sophisticated organised crime that we're dealing with the tools that we have in law, where we have to go and get a search warrants, where we have to obey jurisdictional approaches, where we're dealing with organisations which are supported by governments in different jurisdictions. So these are questions that we've really got to get our head around if we're going to be able to deal with the new emerging financial crime in the next decade. Because if we keep going the way we're going with this lackadaisical approach, that we're doing a few investigations there, that we're putting out a fire there, we will not succeed unless we do things in a completely different way. That's all I wanted to leave you with. You have my paper, and I think AI, in the end, will be an important tool. But at the end of the day, you need the skills of investigation, you need the energy, and you need to know how to deal with the complex issues which lie ahead. Thank you very much for listening.